Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife consult for you on the Valence Knives Gamma Midtech. The Gamma is a knife from Valence Knives, Valence Knives being a company run by a guy named Ilya Pasumanskiy. He works out of Washington State and he is a custom knife maker. He makes a model called the Gamma. It was his first folding knife design. He also makes a knife called the Sigma, as well as some other products, including a spinner. He is an engineer and a designer and a maker, and he has an eye for sort of badassery and elegance. In fact, his motto on his website is combining badassery and elegance into EDC singularity. So those are his words, and that sort of defines the overall philosophy of his products and his knives. And you can see that certainly in this very large 4-inch bladed, very big Tanto folder right here. So let's go ahead and get into some of the specifics on this knife. Now, I've been looking at this design for quite a while, and it has been very intriguing, but I certainly did not realize that this was such a huge knife. Overall length, you're coming in at almost 9 3/4 inches. Really, it is 9 3/4 inches. The blade, depending on where you're measuring it from, is really 4+ inches. It might be 4 inches, but I see a hair of extra length going on there. You're getting about 3.75 inches of overall cutting length. The handle is coming in at 5.5 inches with 5 inches of grip area and 6 inches if you include the overall with the finger choil. The thickness is coming in at 0.55 inches, and you've got 0.157 on the blade stock right here. So fairly standard thickness for how long this overall knife is. Speaking of how long it is, I wanted to go ahead and bring out another couple of knives, but first I wanted to highlight the way that this knife looks. If you follow my channel, you might recognize this overall Frunkey motif of the green and black here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring out another few knives for a size comparison and a motif comparison right here. Here's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and a Paramilitary 3, a Para 3 right here, also with some green and black accents. Just wanted to show you that this Gamma is absolutely huge. It completely dwarfs the Paramilitary 2 up there. I think that what Ilya saw on my channel was actually my Koenig Knives Arius, and he said that he wanted to make me a knife with a very similar look because he knows what my preferences are, and I'll say that he nailed it right here. I think it looks great, but the Koenig is not a small knife by any means, and it's absolutely dwarfed by that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out an even bigger knife. This is a Microtech Combat Troodon right here with the gigantic handle and a 3.5-inch blade, and you can see that the Gamma is still bigger even than that. So understand what you're getting yourself into when you're looking at that. And the last spec in terms of large size going on here is going to be the weight. Due to this large handle and large blade without internal milling, it's coming here with 6.79 ounces, almost 7 ounces of weight. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically and see what we're working with. Up front is a blade of M390 steel, done in a harpoon Tanto grind with a hollow ground primary bevel, a harpoon swedge, a flat ground tip, and a spider hole opening. All of these things I really, really like. The hollow grind makes this very thin behind the edge. I was expecting this, random frame lock flipper that just looks like this to not be a good cutter. A lot of knives out there, these guys are designing these overbuilt large knives and they're just wedges. They're more of pry bars than anything else. But this thing with its hollow ground M390 actually slices very well. That has been one of the biggest surprises and pleasant things about this, and it has really grown on me. The tip is quite strong, and having that Tanto tip allows for a lot of different uses throughout the day. I had a discussion with Nick Chuprin where he said that he preferred the Tanto because you get 2 tips for the price of 1, and we use those tips in a lot of our cutting tasks in an everyday situation, and he's not wrong. I've really been thinking about that recently. The spider hole opener works very, very well. It's very easy to get your finger into that thing at various different positions and then fling that blade out very, very nicely. The forward finger choil is indeed a full-size forward finger choil, allowing for various different grips. You can get your thumb all the way up there onto the harpoon, your finger there. You can rest your hand like this and put your finger on the thumb on the jimping, which I will say is another big selling point for me. This jimping is absolutely great. I would love to see this pattern on every knife ever because it's very comfortable and it's very it's got a lot of traction. It's very functional and very good looking to me. I like it a lot. So a lot of good going on with this blade, from the forward choil to the hollow grind to the spider hole to the jimping to just the way that it cuts. It's an excellent blade, and that is what he wanted to do. He wanted to be badass, but also functional, and I will say that he has achieved that here. I appreciate the satin flats and the very subtle logo. I like the Valence Knives logo right there. This one does not have the blade steel designation, but it is serialized. Mine is number 51 right here. Moving back to the pivot, this runs on ceramic ball bearings housed in phosphor bronze cages. This runs on steel washers, and I appreciate that. It's not ceramic bearings on titanium, which can eventually wear out. This is ceramic on hardened steel, so that's a very nice touch right there. There's also a ceramic detent ball and a steel lock bar insert. Here I'll give you a picture of the lockup right here. There is secure, solid, early lockup with a radius lock bar, with a radius lock face right there, and it's very secure. There is no lock stick at all. What I will say is that the detent and the action are very, very, very nicely tuned. It is a crisp detent that works well for both the Spidey flick and the finger flick. The flipper tab has excellent geometry, being at about 90 degrees from the pivot. It has a little bit of jimping on it that allows for this sort of hybrid push-button light switch throw that just gives you an excellent throw every time, and you're not going to misfire this knife. There's excellent traction and a very crisp detent. Something I also really appreciate is when the knife drops shut and you get this sound. Very, very loud and crisp detent when it goes back into the handle. It's a satisfying thing that I think knife nuts really like to see and hear. Moving back to the handle, these are large slabs of 6AL4V titanium done in very, very nicely milled patterns. This has this diamond pattern to it. It's got a titanium backspacer with a large lanyard loop on the back. There is a milled titanium pocket clip with hidden hardware with the matching diamond-like pattern right there. I think this is beautiful, and it functions quite well. I would like to see the clip not come down right at the lock bar cutout. That oftentimes makes it a little bit of a pinch to take the thing out of the pocket. Usually not a big deal to go into the pocket. What I also notice is that there is a different type of milling up underneath the clip. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show it to you if I lift it up and show it. There is a different type of milling, and it is flattened up underneath the clip so that this slides in a little bit easier. So there is that consideration. It is flat underneath there. He did think about that. So there is that small consideration. Again, on the inside of the handle, there is no internal milling. However, he has this sort of characteristic feature here where he has a large lock bar cutout. He said that he started doing this on his custom knives, and he wanted to have this on the Midtech. And it's sort of unique. I'm not sure about the overall engineering necessity or strength of the whole thing. I'm going to stay away from that discussion completely, but it feels strong. It feels like it's locking up quite well, and We Knives has executed his design quite well. So what do I think of this knife? Well, as you may have gathered from the review here, this knife has surprised me. I was expecting to get kind of a chunky, heavy, useless pry bar of a thing, and I'm actually here with a crisp, well-made, well-engineered, well-thought-out, functional big knife. It has a huge blade and a huge handle. I will say that one of the things I discussed with him immediately was the fact that there's over a ½ an inch of wasted real estate at the bottom of the knife here. He said he resolved that on his new knife, the Sigma, where it literally wraps around the blade very tightly. But that's really my only complaint, is that the knife is just a little bit too big. But if you're into big knives, it's very ergonomic. It has so many different hand positions. I can hold it all the way back here for a ton of reach choke up here, choke up here, choke up there. I talked to Levin of the Knife Nuts podcast, and he was joking about choils on choils on choils on this knife, and you really have a lot of flexibility. It functions well. It feels great. It feels like a tank. It's got all the things that a knife guy is going to be looking for. So if you're looking for a really big EDC knife, a hard use knife, take a look at Valence Knives and the Gamma Midtech here. Thanks for watching, guys. Click like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, and as always, take care.